Welcome to Trifecta Collective, Finding the Root, where we dive deep into understanding and addressing root causes of chronic health issues so you can help and find healing inside and out, now and forever.
Hello, and welcome to Trifecta Collective, Finding the Root. I'm Megan Abbott, owner and founder of the holistic health practice Trifecta Collective. Welcome to the podcast. So today I wanted to talk about if you are brand new to the holistic health space, functional medicine space, alternative, if we want to call it alternative health space, if you've quote unquote fallen off the wagon, maybe you're a new mom, maybe you are just looking to feel a little bit better, and or if you have so many issues going on, so many symptoms, so many things, where do you even start in your healing journey? What should you do diet wise, movement, lifestyle things, supplements? Let's broad spectrum. Where should we really start, and what does this really look like? And the reason we did a basics episode quite some time ago is pretty early on in the podcast, and still a great episode, by the way. Feel free to go back to that. And I wanted to not necessarily redo it, but bring this topic back around because we do get a lot of people who are brand new to this space. This, once again, if we want to call it alternative, I would call it more basic and foundational health. What do we do? Where do we start? What does this really look like? Just where and how? And once again, if you've quote unquote fallen off the wagon, if you're just getting started back into a health journey, if you have, we get a lot of new moms, within the first couple years of after their children are born, of I've been neglecting myself for several years and I need to shift that because I feel like garbage. I'm tired all the time. Potentially there's some other things going on. And what are some real basic things that we can recommend that can help and support you? What I will say is these are the basics. I'm also talking, obviously, on this kind of podcast, really broad spectrum. And I'm gonna put some asterisk and some clarification on a lot of things here, because here's the thing. There is no one size fits all. There is no one diet. There is no one supplement. There is no one thing for your health. It is, and really the reason behind this is our body works together. The way Western medicine approaches health, which once again, totally understand, not that Western medicine is bad. It's great for acute stuff going on, meaning that I have the flu. Here's something to help with your symptoms. Or I am having breathing problems from pneumonia, and to get an inhaler to help you breathe better. By the way, there's also a handful of natural things for all of these things, which is why I'm oh, are these great examples? And, medical emergencies. I love this example. I'm in a car accident. My abdomen gets ripped open. I need someone to put the parts back together. Thank goodness for Western medicine, for surgery, for antibiotics, for all of the things to help me get better and to save my life. However, when it comes to chronic conditions, autoimmune diseases, we can say most things when it comes to women's health and hormones. Western medicine is not great. If we want to talk about gut issues, chronic inflammatory issues, chronic sinus issues, chronic cognitive type issues, Western medicine sucks. By and large, it sucks. And you will be symptom managed with a bunch of pills and or dismissed. Those are typically the two options. And or just give it birth control. Just go ahead birth control. It'll fix everything. That's the only way that these physicians are trained how to quote unquote fix or rebalance our hormones. So Western medicine has a time and a place. And when it comes to women's health, when it comes to chronic issues, when it comes to preventative health, when it comes to health optimization, this is really where functional, holistic, all of these things can really come into play. And you can be symptom managed just as much in the holistic health functional medicine space as well, just with supplements and really expensive tests. And for many people, before you even do that, this foundational type work is everything. I mean, this is work that we do with every single one of our clients. And, the supplement piece is going to be a little bit different, but almost everything I talk about today, this is where we start with our clients. And yes, we are addressing bigger picture issues. We do look at labs. We may run a functional test or two, depending on the person, to help identify bigger root causes that are systemically impacting the body and contributing to the variety of symptoms you are experiencing. And I will tell you that if people did most of the things I'm talking about today, most people would feel pretty decent and their health would be in a decent position. Maybe not optimal, but pretty darn decent, because these are the foundational basics that really everyone, by and large, we'll say with a handful of exceptions on a lot of these, however, I'm going to talk about that, should be following. So we cover 5 main areas in our practice. Anytime we work with any one of our clients, we're covering 5 main areas. And that's really where I want to start, is covering the basics within these 5 main areas. So area number 1, nutrition. This is a big topic in and of itself. I could talk for hours and hours and hours just on nutrition. However, I'm not going to do that. We're going to keep this episode to an hour, give or take a little bit. And foundational work when it comes to nutrition. First and foremost, I feel very confident in saying this. By and large, every human would benefit from eating a mostly whole foods based diet. Now, there are a lot of nuances within that. However, this is once again foundational, basic work. And when we think about whole foods, we are talking about essentially 1 to 2 ingredient foods. So things like chicken, beef, broccoli, spinach, bananas, blueberries, whole foods versus foods that come in packages. Now, I also want to note that not all foods in packages are the worst. If we think of flash frozen veggies, and if the only ingredient in that bag of veggies is broccoli and cauliflower, still a whole food. It's just flash frozen. Same thing with berries. Like if you're using, a lot of people do smoothies, and if you're using fruit within your smoothies, frozen fruit can be really beneficial. It's not going to go bad very quickly, and you've got a lot of options there. And once again, so the ingredient is whatever fruit or fruits are in that, and that is the only ingredients, still a whole food. When we get into trouble is when we get many ingredients. And once again, pick and choose your battles here. If we look at quick and easy snacks, for me, oftentimes, one of my go-to snacks is beef sticks. Just plain beef sticks. And, yes, it is a processed food by the technical definition. However, most of the meat sticks that I eat the ingredients are beef and a handful of spices. For me, that is whole food enough that it's fine. For me, it's fine. I also know that almost entirely my diet is made up of whole foods, of nutrient-dense whole foods. We cook all the time. We almost never eat out. Yes, we have snacks around the house, and I will also say Jonathan is more of a snacker than I am. I am more of a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If I need a snack in between, sure, once again, meat snacks, meat sticks. I also have some yogurts in there, dairy-free yogurts that, once again, have a handful of ingredients. The ingredients are all things that I know what they are. It's like coconut milk, some different probiotics, and some coconut sugar. And that's it. And once again, so I'm picking and choosing my battles. I would say primarily focus on whole foods as much as you can. And if you can make about 80% of your diet based on whole foods, that's a pretty good start. And that's a pretty good place to be. I think where people really get in trouble from a nutritional standpoint, and this is really for a lot of things, by the way, is putting so much pressure on yourself to be perfect and or to follow certain rules that you overcomplicate it. The simpler it can be, the better. For me, when I make a meal, big things I'm thinking about, and I say this, we do not have kids. It is me and my fiance, Jonathan. Jonathan, for reference, is almost 6 foot. He is a hard gainer, meaning he is pretty slim. He does a good amount of physical activity, so he's pretty active, and I'm definitely less active than he is. I'm also definitely not a hard gainer. My weight stays pretty darn steady. My body shape has not changed drastically in a very long time because I maintain most of my habits, and in which case I'm having very mild weight fluctuations. And we have a big focus on a more holistic, healthy type of lifestyle. So if we're gonna splurge and I'm just trying to think of some of our splurges. We get these Justin's dark chocolate peanut butter cups. Oh my goodness, they are amazing. Once again, they're pretty good quality. It's dark chocolate. Peanut butter is not always my favorite thing. If they had an almond butter based one, that would be my preference. Just peanuts and mold, not my super favorite thing. Another common, like little treat for myself is I get like dark chocolate bars, like 70 to 85% dark chocolate, and I'll have some raspberries with it. Like that is an awesome treat for me, and it tastes so good. If you're like Megan, that sounds disgusting and not sweet enough for me. Here's the thing. When you switch to a mostly whole foods diet, your taste buds will change. Things will taste different, especially sweets and fruit. For me, if I have something that's pretty artificially flavored, which does not happen very often, for me, it actually doesn't taste good. I can taste that it's fake and artificial and filled with either like all the gross fats or sugars or chemicals and stuff, and actually does not taste good for me. However, if I were to eat a lot of that most of the time, my taste buds would change. And by the way, food manufacturers know this and purposely do this. If you're also like Megan, it's so expensive to eat healthy. I'm also going to disagree with you on that. Whole foods, generally speaking, are not crazy expensive. Generally speaking. What is really expensive are packaged alternative, quote unquote, healthy foods. That is what's really expensive. As someone who's been gluten-free for a very long time now, we're going on 7 years, I think. Those types of like all the gluten-free snacks, all the Whole30, all the paleo snacks, like all of those snacks are crazy expensive. Even the meat sticks I get, pretty darn expensive. What's not super expensive is when I buy in bulk chicken thighs, when I buy some fresh veggies or fruit. And by the way, I also typically eat what is in season, which is going to be cheaper because it's more available. My body also craves these things. In the wintertime, I definitely start to crave more like squashes and root type vegetables versus in the summer, I'm craving more fruits. Mangoes is a big one. Mangoes, pineapples, a bunch of berries. I mean, berries is a pretty year-round thing for me, all that kind of stuff. And so when you can buy more seasonally, that also makes a difference from a price point. So here's what I usually recommend. Like pick and choose your battles, especially if you have a family. especially if you are making a transition that can feel pretty drastic for some families. That I've worked with enough people at this point that I've gotten that feedback. Slow and steady. Just make slow and steady changes over time, and it goes a really long way. And by the way, if you are switching to more of a whole foods based diet, start with like one thing. Start with like, all right, I'm just going to focus on whole food based proteins for right now. Or if you're like, I'm terrible at cooking proteins, I'm going to focus on veggies right now. Like, pick and choose your battles. Set yourself up for success when it comes to any and all of this. Some of the worst things you can do is put too much pressure on yourself to be perfect. I'm not perfect. No human is perfect. If someone tells you they eat perfectly, it's an obsession. And we probably want to check on their mental health a little bit here because that is absolutely playing a role. I even like a lot of these biohackers, and by the way, I hate biohackers. I just, pick and choose. They have some good tools and stuff out there, but if you follow a lot of the basics, you will see results. And if you're not, there's probably something bigger going on that needs to be addressed because the basics do go a long way. These are the basics and the foundation for a reason. So pick and choose your battles. Start with one thing. Don't start with all the things. Let me go back to, so when I'm building meals, here's how I really think about building meals. Sorry, you know me, I like to jump around a little bit. My brain likes to be a little bouncy. So when I'm building meals, my breakfasts are largely the same most days, with very few exceptions. A lot of times I'm having chicken sausage as my main source of protein, hoping to get anywhere with at least 20 grams. I will say I aim for 25 to 40 grams of protein at breakfast, and I'm usually hitting that. And then I'll usually have some sort of carb with that. That might be some gluten-free bread. This is probably like my most processed meal ever. Some gluten-free bread, and usually I'll put some almond butter that is literally just almonds, and potentially some jam on there. That once again, I do splurge on the good stuff, but I don't eat it all that often. So I'm doing that, or I'm making pancakes, homemade pancakes. I may have, if we have a bigger breakfast, Jonathan loves big breakfast, and I do too. We'll have, chicken sausage, a couple eggs, a piece of toast, and then potentially even some like onions and peppers in there. So we're getting some fiber in there. I will have some berries oftentimes too for some extra fiber if I haven't gotten that from another source. But my breakfasts are largely the same, and I have no problem with that. I know not everyone is like that. Pick and choose like 2 to 4 different ones that feel good for you and just rotate them. It's usually pretty easy. And then lunch and dinner for me are essentially the same. It is a protein, it is a veggie, and then I usually have a carb, like a starchy or carb source at one of those. And that might be a starchy veggie, that might be some white rice. We don't do pasta a ton. I'm not a big pasta person anymore unless I'm making a big, like, I do like a salmon and shrimp based pasta that's like a really big meal that's super good. So I might do that. Potentially potatoes. I'm not the biggest potato person, but I like to have a starchy carb at one of those two. I typically won't do it at both as a female that is 5'5", that is fairly inactive. I'm walking, I'm getting back into working out, but for me, I don't need a lot of carbs. I also don't feel great with a ton of carbs right now. As my workout schedule changes, that also does change. So I try and listen to my body with that. But I would say for most women, it's a pretty decent outline of how to build a meal. When it comes to nutrition, we also need to understand that there are 2 essential nutrients, proteins and fats. Technically speaking, from a biological standpoint, we do not need carbohydrates. And most of us would benefit from eating carbohydrates, especially if you are a menstruating female. Carbohydrates are still your friends. I do not typically recommend going too low carb, doing a keto, a carnivore, anything like that, because it really can impact your hormones. For some people dealing with a lot of chronic issues, yeah, it can be supportive temporarily while we're addressing the bigger issues. And for most people, it is not supportive and can have very detrimental long-term impacts. I don't think I've ever worked with anyone who has done quote unquote therapeutic diets or restrictive dieting long term. And by long term, I mean more than 3 months that has not come out on the other side with food fear and or food anxiety. I cannot think of a single case. Something to keep in mind. So we're not big fans. If were told you have IBS or IBD and to go on a low FODMAP diet, if your friend started doing intermittent fasting and saw a lot of great results, if your friend started keto and saw really great results, and you want to try any or all of these things, highly recommend not doing these things for more than 3 months. Also keep in mind, most of these therapeutic diets are going to force you to eat more whole, nutrient-dense foods. Why do people feel better going from a standard American diet to a vegan diet? Because most people who make that switch are now switching to whole foods. It's not necessarily that a vegan or vegetarian diet is better, or that a carnivore diet is better, or that a keto diet. Like, none of these diets, I think, are necessarily good, great long term. I think some people do, for more reasons, specifically vegan or vegetarian, pescatarian, somewhere in that world, like totally get that. That's a little bit different. And if you're doing it just from a health weight loss standpoint, a lot of these restrictive diets can have very negative consequences. And I've seen a lot of those. And it can be just mental and emotional. However, I've seen some really significant physical consequences as well. Vegan vegetarianism, once again, like if you have an ethical or moral reason as to why you're doing that, totally support that. There are absolutely ways to maintain a healthy body, to maintain a healthy mindset around that without compromising your health. And if you're not really on top of your nutrients when it comes to some of these, it can be very dangerous. The number of women specifically with thyroid issues who were multiple years vegan vegetarian, I have seen so many cases of this, and it's so unfortunate. And a lot of it has to do with nutrient deficiencies and being chronically deficient in so many things that it becomes very challenging and their body starts to respond accordingly. So from a nutritional standpoint, the basics: whole nutrient dense foods, prioritize proteins and fats, especially if you're a menstruating woman. I do not recommend going too low carb. And really what I mean by too low carb, by the way, by and large, don't count your calories. Don't track. Once again, there could be a lot of damage that comes from that. And I say that as someone who spent years in the bodybuilding space, counting all my macros, counting everything that went into my body, I kept track of, and it was very obsessive. And that is a very common thing in that space, by the way. So focus on not too low carb. Usually 100 grams of carbs is where I don't recommend going lower than that. If you are really short, though, if you're under, let's say like 5'1", 5'2", we could probably go a little bit lower depending on your activity level. And just be very mindful of that. Carbs are very supportive for our bodies for a variety of reasons, fiber being one of those. So looking at that, getting some basic education or doing some basic research around what is protein, what is a fat, what is a carbohydrate, that can go a really long way. And if you're into using AI, have a little chit chat with your favorite AI service, learn a little bit more about that. And really, or you can just do a quick Google search. Just search what this is. There's lots of great resources. We have tons of great resources on this as well. And we share those pretty regularly on especially Instagram and TikTok. Most of those go on Facebook too. So you can certainly find those on our different channels. That does go a long way. The number of people who I talk to who think peanut butter is a good source of protein, eggs, good source of protein. For reference, eggs have about 6 grams of protein per egg. So if we're using those at breakfast and you want to hit the 20 grams of protein mark, which is something I do highly recommend once you have some of the basics down, that's 4 eggs if we're doing some math here. 4 eggs. That's too many for most women that I talk to. They're like, I can never eat that many eggs. Yeah, I'd have a hard time eating that many eggs too. I like eggs here and there. They're not my super favorite. If I overdo on eggs too, I can start to develop my skin will definitely respond with some acne and breakouts. But I do find like eggs a couple times a week. I do okay, like an egg here and there kind of thing. So some basics there. I'll also say if you need help with recipes, we have a free cookbook. I'll make sure we put a link below to our cookbook. And we have a new one that we are working on. That one is more like fall, winter type recipes, a lot of crock pot recipes, some more cozier type recipes. And we're working on a spring and summer one that will be a little bit more fresh. We'll definitely have some salads in there. We'll have some grilled recipes. We'll have some other things in there that are a little bit more spring, summer-y. And these are all very quick, easy, delicious recipes. I've made all of them for reference, and we have gotten so many compliments on this cookbook after it came out. So highly recommend. I'll make sure we share that link in the show notes so you can get access to that, and then be sure to follow us for when we release the spring and summer one, which will probably be in the next month or so as of the recording of this episode. Probably by mid-April at the latest. So that's some basics when it comes to nutrition. Couple things when you're eating. When you're eating, chew your food. Like more than you think. Really, really chew it. Try to limit your liquid intake around meals. One of the big reasons for that is you're likely to chew less. And you need to chew your food to start your digestive process. Digestion actually starts in the brain, which I'm going to get to in just a second. The next piece is really in our mouth with the chewing. Most people do not chew. Many, many, many people inhale. That is not great for your digestion, just overall. And I'll tell you, people just slowing down a little bit and actually chewing their food, that can go a long way. If you are a smoothie person, don't chug your smoothie. Drink it slowly. Take at least 30 minutes to drink your smoothie. An hour is even better. Also, mimic chewing for your smoothie. You can leave your smoothie a little chunky if you have a really hard time remembering this, but even just doing a little bit of a gentle chewing motion, that'll help to stimulate more digestive enzymes and digestive juices to help break down your food. A lot of people, especially if they have underlying gut issues to begin with, can get a lot of blowing, a lot of digestive discomfort when drinking smoothies, and it's largely because they're drinking them too fast and not chewing, and the body doesn't super appreciate that. So just some things to think about there. The other kind of piece with nutrition that I'm going to say is water intake. Drink your water, ideally not with your meals though. Ideally give it a little bit of space. You know, the science is pretty conflicted when it comes to does liquid or water intake around with your meals dilute stomach acid and other digestive enzymes. Hit or miss on that. Once again, the science is pretty conflicted. And I will tell you, having worked with over 1,000 people, if you just limit your liquid with your meals and actually slow down, chew your food, that goes a long way. And not having the liquids with your meals helps with that. Also, slow down a little bit. Digestion starts in our brain. So when we inhale our food, and if we're doing a million other things while we're trying to eat, if we're in the car, if we're working, if we're trying to do all the things while we eat, your body is in a stress state, and digestion doesn't work properly when we're in a stress state. Now, with this, if you're a busy person, if you're a parent, this may not always be possible. Do your best. It is not about being perfect. It is about making an effort in doing your best and slowly over time changing your habits. And when it is possible to actually sit down and eat and take the time to eat, do that. If you don't, do your best. Maybe take a couple of deep breaths before you start eating. Maybe you do your best to actually chew your food, even if you're busy. Little things go a really long way. So all of that's really valuable. Water intake. Man, I can't tell you the number of people who don't drink honestly, any water, let alone enough water. Now, here's the other thing. You don't need to be drinking a gallon of water a day, especially if you're a female. If you're very active, sure, go for it. For most of us, though, 60 to 90 ounces is probably going to be just fine, depending on your activity level, depending on the weather. When it's colder out, we typically don't need quite as much as when it's really hot out and we're sweating and we're losing fluids from our body. We want to replenish a little bit more, in which case, yeah, hydrate a little bit more. This is fundamental. So fundamental. When you're chronically dehydrated, side effects that happen, and this can happen after a day, let alone several days, several weeks, for some of you, several years or decades of dehydration, headaches, higher inflammation, joint pain, joint achiness, lower back pain, feeling like crap, just low energy. Water is needed for so many things. And if you are not drinking enough water, start there. Just start by trying to drink a little extra water. And if you're having 20 ounces a day, don't go to 60 ounces. You're going to be in the bathroom every half an hour for at least a week. Start slow. If you're drinking 20, go to 30 ounces. If let's say you have a water bottle that's 20 ounces, do a water bottle and a half. Then do 2. Then do 2.5. Then do 3. And then see if you can get a little bit more. But don't try and go from 0 to 100. That is the ultimate way to set yourself up for failure. I'm gonna wait to share the rest of that thought until I get to nervous system work and mindfulness. So basics on nutrition. Once again, just wanted to cover some real basics here. So that's real basics when it comes to nutrition and hydration. Next thing, some basic lifestyle things. I'm going to put lifestyle, mindfulness, and nervous system work all in the same. And by the way, we do treat those as 3 different things in our practice. So we have nutrition, lifestyle, movement, nervous system regulation, and then targeted and limited supplementation are the 5 areas that we focus on. So I'm going to combine lifestyle and nervous system here a bit, and then I'll do movement separately. So lifestyle things. Once again, these things really overlap. One of the most foundational things that your body needs as a human is sleep. Anything you can do to optimize your sleep will be beneficial. The research is so clear at this point that women need more sleep than men. The research is so good on this. Just research is hit or miss for a lot of things. This is not one of those. Ladies, you need sleep. You need more than 6 hours of sleep. I know you can function on it. It will catch up with you. 7 to 9 hours. I will tell you 7.5 to 8.5 is the sweet spot for most women. 7.5 to 8.5. That means you might have to go to bed a little bit earlier. Maybe you'll let something go in the morning that isn't absolutely necessary. Give yourself some time to sleep because you need it. Your body needs it. Your digestion, your hormones. Perimenopause, by the way, if you are sleep deprived for months, years, for most women, decades, perimenopause is going to be the absolute nightmare that everyone talks about. I can almost guarantee that. There's a lot of factors that go into this, but sleep is fundamental and foundational. Now, I know a lot of people have a lot of sleep issues. I have a long history of all kinds of sleep issues. Couple basic things that can be supportive for a lot of people. Have some sort of wind down routine at night. This should not include doom scrolling social media for an hour or 30 minutes. That is not turning your brain off and telling your body it's time to sleep. That is activating your nervous system into a stressed state. Okay. have some sort, and this doesn't have to be a whole drawn out, like big thing. Like for some people, 30 minutes is enough of just like get in a dark space, prepare your body, limit stimulation as much as you can. Focus on helping your body relax. This might be, I'm not against TV. I think you should probably wear some blue light blocking glasses because the blue light will impact your melatonin levels, which will then impact your sleep quality and quantity. Nothing stimulating, though. This goes for books, by the way. I have some people that read like horror books or thriller books before bed, and they're like, I have these just like crazy dreams, and I toss and turn a lot. I don't feel like I get really good quality sleep. And it's because they're getting overstimulated right before bed. Same thing with your show, same thing with a podcast, same thing with music. All of these things can be very, very good and supportive. And if you pick and choose the wrong things, it can be very overstimulating. So for me, before bed, if we're going to watch TV, that needs to look like a show, largely a show I've already seen. We have staples. We're watching Grey's Anatomy right now, and that is like very low key. Ted Lasso, The Office, Modern Family. Most of these are shorter sitcoms that are very lighthearted. I've seen a ton of times. They're super good, but also my brain is turning off, and I just get to like have fun and enjoy this show. So pick and choose. Same thing like with a book, like a low-key book, not a thriller, not a crazy fantasy that's going to like really activate your mind and stimulate you. Like those books are great and super fun and not the best pre-bedtime kind of things going on. Same thing with like podcasts or music. Something that's going to help you wind it down and start to tell your body it's time to relax, it's time to de-stress, and sleep is coming. A cool environment also goes a long way. Now, trauma plays a big role in sleep, and it probably plays a bigger role in sleep issues than most people would like to admit. They were for me, and I see it all the time with people who have a lot of sleep issues. Hormones also play a big role, especially as women, especially when your progesterone starts to drop in perimenopause. So sometimes progesterone support can be really valuable. Super depends on the person, how and what that really looks like. Magnesium glycinate is a pretty safe bet for sleep support. Anywhere between 200 to 400 milligrams on average, it can be very supportive. About 30 to 60 minutes before bed, there's all kinds of brands out there. Pure Encapsulations is one that we typically like. However, there's many, many good brands out there. So magnesium can be supportive. And then oftentimes when we see people consistently waking up around the same times, this will give us an indication as to what might be interrupting sleep. Anywhere between 1 to about 2:30. If someone's consistently, not every once in a while, I'm talking almost every night, you're waking up between that time, probably need some liver support. If you wake up between 2:30 and 3:30, probably cortisol, and you probably need some support to reduce that cortisol. Cortisol Manager from Integrative Therapeutics is an awesome option. Sometimes the magnesium will be enough to support that too. If you wake up between about 3:30 to about 4:30, and once again, this is your alarm is not going off, you're supposed to be sleeping kind of thing. This can kind of be one of two things. One, we might want to look at histamine load because that is a common time for a histamine dump to happen, which can absolutely wake you up. It can also be more emotional with a physical link to it. Our lungs are doing a lot of restorative work around that time. So if someone has a lot of like breathing issues, asthma type issues, we may look at that. The lungs also, when they're processing emotions of grief and sadness. So when someone is consistently waking up between that 3:30, 4:30 time, we'll also ask, what might be coming up for you right now? What is going on in your life, in your relationships? Is there potentially some sadness, some grief coming up? Like, what does that really look like for you? In which case, we may want to add in some support, and this could look like so many things with that. So sleep, fundamental bedtime routine of some sort. Don't make it crazy. Doesn't have to be crazy. Real simple. just telling your body and preparing your body for sleep, just like you do in the morning, preparing your body to wake up, of preparing your body for the day ahead. Same concept with the bedtime routine. Other lifestyle things, movement in general, we all need movement. We weren't meant to sit all day, every day in front of screens. Things like lifestyle things like getting some natural light in your eyes. Really, at any time during the day, yeah, there's special benefits in the morning and in the evening. And I will tell you once again, from a basic standpoint, get outside for 10 minutes a day. Even if it's raining, even if it's cloudy and gloomy out, your body still responds to the natural light in your eyes and can help with energy. It can help with sleep. It's not going to be an immediate thing. It's not going to be like, oh my God, I got 10 minutes outside today. Like I'm going to sleep super great. Like it can take a little bit of consistency to see results. So give it a little bit of time, but that's really valuable, really important. And then I'm going to talk about movement next. Some other lifestyle things, having a way to process stress. This is a big one. And I will tell you, the whole mindfulness kind of emergence, nervous system regulation emergence, these are kind of two different things, although there are a lot of similarities. Nervous system regulation, we've done several podcast episodes on this. We're also have another podcast coming out in a few weeks where Caitlin and I, are one of our other practitioners, are talking more about mental and emotional wellness and support. And we talk about the nervous system a little bit more. We've also done a lot of other podcast episodes all about the nervous system. Mindfulness can help with nervous system support, and there's a lot of other layers that can be needed for that. However, once again, if we go with the basics, some sort of mindfulness routine, some sort of way to manage stress that is not getting a super hard workout. Not saying workouts aren't good for mental and emotional health, because they are. And if that is the primary way you de-stress, you're not actually de-stressing. You're causing more stress in your body. This might look like meditation. Meditation is not for everyone, by the way. I don't think meditation is like the be all end all. I am a huge fan. It has been very supportive in my own health and healing journey. It has been for many other people. And that can be a hard place to start for a lot of people. If you are going to start with meditation, guided meditations, go on YouTube. Breath work, phenomenal. I find that to be one of the most effective ways for people to start with breath work. Once again, Google, do a YouTube video, give me some guided breathwork sessions. Doesn't have to be long, 2 to 5 minutes. This could also be, by the way, just like take literally 1 minute and take some deep breaths. Big inhale through your nose, big exhale through your mouth. It goes a long way. This might be journaling. Journaling can be very supportive. Some people use this as a way for nervous system support. I think it can not be. I think it can be, and I think it cannot be. But even just getting some things that are going on inside your brain out of your brain onto some paper, man, that can definitely help with some mindfulness, some stress management, stress capacity. Those can go a long way. Somatic work is another really good one. And once again, there's some really basic things that you can do. Even, as simple as tapping over your heart, tapping on your chest. That can be a somatic movement. Super easy. You can do that anywhere. Do it with your kids, by the way, because it will also, any or all of this will be super beneficial for your kids to learn this really young. And a great tool, especially when they start to get overwhelmed. You're overwhelmed, they're overwhelmed. Take a minute, take a few big deep breaths. Man, what a life skill for both of you, you and them. Very, very, very valuable skill. So loop your kids into this if you have children. Basic somatic work can go a really long way. Once again, go to YouTube, 2 to 5 minutes, search for some guided somatic work. So those are some basic lifestyle things that can go a really long way just for your basic health. Let's talk about movement next. Movement is good, super good for the body. There is arguably no one way of moving that is best for everyone. What you will be most consistent with is where I recommend starting. Now, long term, I have different suggestions. I do think all women specifically need to be strength training. I don't think that needs to look a specific way. And I also don't think that's right for everyone when they're first starting off. This might be a 5-minute walk twice a week, and that is your movement. It might be 5 or 10 minutes of yoga or some basic stretching every day, a few times a week. Great. That might be a yoga class once a week. That might be a dance class once a week. You just need movement. Once again, if you're going from you don't do anything, start small, start low, start slow. Pick one thing that you feel like is going to be easy to be consistent with. I find walking to be one of the simplest ways for a lot of people. For other people, even just some basic mobility movements. We might give a client anywhere between 3 to 5 basic mobility movements, start opening up their hips, start opening up, kind of the back shoulder chest area, and start to just open up some of these areas can go a really, really long way and be very supportive and is a great entry point into some movement without overwhelming the body, without being taxing, without getting super sore, and have the ability to do pretty easily. Most of us have an opportunity. I do understand we are coming out of winter, or most people are coming out of winter right now, and there are some places where walking is not an option for certain parts of the year. So, I totally get that. Once again, if you have some floor space, you can stretch. If you have a bed, you can do some basic stretching and mobility work. So, we can make this work wherever with whatever resources that you have. And you don't need a gym membership. You don't need to go to fancy Pilates classes or yoga classes or all of these other things. You don't need a lot of space. Where do you sleep? If you have a bed, once again, basic mobility and stretching, you can absolutely do that on a bed. You can do it on the floor. You can do it standing. There's many things you can do while you're standing. So there's so many options. Try not to overcomplicate it. Any movement is better than no movement. Once again, we're talking about people just starting back. Something is better than nothing. Okay. And then last piece I want to talk about is supplements. And then I want to talk about implementation to kind of wrap up this part of this episode. Supplements. Most people don't need many supplements. If we're looking long term, for most of our clients, we do use supplements as a tool to help with bigger healing work. Now, keep in mind, by and large, we are working with people with chronic health issues, chronic gut issues, all kinds of hormone issues, anemia issues, autoimmune type issues, chronic inflammatory issues, thyroid issues, autoimmune type issues, chronic, all kinds of skin type issues, chronic issues, chronic fatigue, any sort of chronic issues we deal with by and large. If you're just starting, you don't need all the things. One of the, I think, biggest problems in the holistic health, functional health space is the amount of supplements that are recommended across the board, especially long term. If you're being pushed into buying a bunch of supplements and with the promise that these things are all going to fix you, one of the big questions I always ask is, okay, if I take this, how long until it fixes it? And if the answer is it's never going to fix it, how long do I need to be on this? Should I even be taking it? Am I just band-aiding something with a supplement that who knows if this is even going to work? Man, the number of supplements recommended to women, especially for hormonal issues, is atrocious. The number of practitioners who overcharge, over-recommend, they're recommending 10, 15, 20 plus supplements. I mean, it's atrocious. It's absolutely atrocious. And they are not practicing functional medicine. They are not practicing holistic health. they are trying to make a bunch of money by throwing a bunch of pills at you. For us, and then, by the way, I've worked with a lot of practitioners in my life in my own health and healing journey, and this is the same. The other two practitioners in our practice, Caitlin and Brendan, they have these same experiences as well. And this is why we don't recommend a ton. Yes, we absolutely use supplements. No, we make almost no money off of them. So we're not just trying to oversell you on these. If someone has a big complaint, we will let you know, hey, we can give you something to symptom manage this. It's going to be another supplement. It's not going to fix it. And it can be supportive short term while we're working on these other bigger issues. And there are some things we will symptom manage. Sleep issues are a big one. I would say iron issues are another really big one. If someone comes in with, you know, really significant anemia issues, like really iron saturation, like really low iron saturation, yeah, we're going to put them on some supplements because iron's a fundamental nutrient your body needs, and we need to get that up as soon as it can. If you're not sleeping, your body needs sleep. We need to give you something to help you sleep. It may take us a couple of tries to figure out what the best option is, but that's going to be a big focus. And bigger picture, we're working on a whole bunch of other things so that you won't need this long term. That is the goal, is short-term support so that you don't need these things long term. The one thing I do typically recommend across the board for just about everyone is a good multivitamin. It's just with the quality of our food, with the quality of our soil, I think it's very challenging for almost any of us, including myself, including someone who is very deep into this space, who very much cares about her health. I find it very challenging. And the thought of eating certain foods on a regular basis to get certain nutrients, like sardines, anchovies, cod livers, like not super appealing to me. I'll eat organ meats over any of those things any day, in which case I'm missing some crucial nutrients. So I take a multivitamin. And that is one thing we do recommend long term. Now, the multivitamin super depends on the person. I'll give you a basic one that is good for a lot of people. However, there's a lot of bio-individuality when it comes to this. And we've done multiple episodes on supplements and different things like that, on multivitamins and different things. So you can go check out some other episodes where we do a little bit of a deeper dive into that. But Twice Daily Multi from Designs for Health is one of our favorites. It is one I commonly take if I find myself having a lot of nutrient deficiencies. I'll switch to a prenatal multivitamin that has no iron. By the way, most people don't actually need iron. And the forms of iron in a lot of these multivitamins are not ideal. For reference, even good quality brands, a lot of times the forms of iron aren't great, especially depending on what else the person is dealing with. So that may be a thing. I don't think everyone should be on beef liver. I don't think one, it's not an actual multivitamin. It is missing nutrients. Now, if you have low iron saturation with a bunch of nutrient deficiencies, yeah, it can be super helpful and super good. Long term, I don't think it's a great multivitamin. Once again, it is missing some things in there that are pretty beneficial long term for people. So I do not recommend that. You can also end up with iron oversaturation issues, which, by the way, feels like anemia issues. As someone who has personally experienced iron oversaturation, it's not good either. So this is also why regular labs are a really good idea. At least once a year, getting some good labs run and having someone look over those, whether that's a doctor, hopefully more holistically minded, or someone like us. We definitely have a lot of previous clients that will come to us just once or twice a year to look over labs. We'll make some recommendations as far as all of the things I'm talking about today to further optimize their health. Now, other supplements that may be helpful, there's a lot of other ones out there. Once again, magnesium glycinate can be really great for a lot of people. Omega-3s, fish oils can be really great for a lot of people. And there's a lot of other ones. However, they should not be the foundation of your health. They're supplements. They're supposed to be supplemental. So, for example, if you hate fish and you're like, I'm never going to eat fish a day in my life. Yeah, maybe you take an omega-3. it can be a little challenging to get enough omega-3s from other non-fish sources. I'll tell you, it can also be challenging even if you do eat a good amount of fish. Salmon is like touted as the be all end all, and cooking it, by the way, drastically decreases the bioavailable omega-3s in it. If it's farm raised, that decreases the omega-3s in it. So there's a lot of factors that go into this. So long term, yeah, there can be some supplements that can be beneficial, and that should not be your foundation. The other thing I forgot to mention earlier with lifestyle is drainage pathway support work. Yeah, you can use supplements for this. I do not recommend relying on supplements forever, though. This is something we talk really intensely with our clients about from a long-term maintaining your health standpoint. This can look like castor oil packs, dry brushing, rebounding, manual lymphatic works, getting in a sauna, Epsom salt baths. If you're really ambitious and love it, like coffee enemas are super great. And I recommend incorporating those pretty regularly into your life. That might look like once or twice a week, depending on the person, depending on what you're doing. And drainage pathways, the most basic thing that they're doing is pushing things out of the body that should not be there. We're all exposed to things every day, even if you live a really clean lifestyle, to things that our body doesn't love having in them. Toxins being a really big one. Plastics, herbicides, pesticides, like chemicals, all that kind of stuff. So if we can continuously support these natural pathways within our body is so smart and has these systems already set up that push things out that should not be there, pushes out toxins. And if we can continuously support those, that can be super, super, super beneficial long term. So once again, once or twice a week, I'll tell you for me right now, castor oil packs are like my go-to. I'm doing them about 2, maybe 3 times a week. I did just get finished with doing some like parasite work because I didn't do any last year while Jonathan was going through his treatment. So I spent a few weeks doing some parasite work, and so I'm continuing to support my drainage pathways a little bit more just because I went pretty intense, and it felt really good for my body. My body really appreciated that, so I want to keep that up. My exposure level last year was also quite high. If you've been listening for a long time, I had some issues pop up last year as he was going through chemo, just with the amount of stress I was going through, and also, secondhand being exposed to some of these chemicals too probably didn't help. So continuing to support drainage pathways, super helpful. Just like, once again, once or twice a week goes a long way. Okay, last thing, implementation. I've mentioned this a couple times already, but one of the worst things you can do when you incorporate new habits is expect perfection going into it and being either all in or all out. This is one of the most dangerous types of mentality that you can have. And if you are this person, I know there's a lot of you out there because we've worked with a ton of them. I also used to be this person. This is probably the first thing that I would work on if I were you, is being like, look, I don't have to be perfect. Nothing in life is perfect. Things are unexpected. Things are unexpected in life. And we can't expect perfection in anything in our lives forever. If you do not succeed at one meal, at one day, at one week, just start again. It's okay. Give yourself a little grace, a little compassion, and just start back. And it's okay. So really focus on that. Consistency over time does not look like 100% all the time. Some days you're going to be 100%, other days you're going to be at 5%, but give all you have in that 5%. And that's okay. Other days you're going to be at 40 or it's going to bounce around there. Consistency is not about being perfect. It's about consistency over time. And it's okay. Another thing I would really focus on is how you feel when you make these changes. Now, for some of these changes, you may not feel an immediate difference. For some of them, you might. I would say you need to give a lot of these things at least a month to start to notice the difference. Once again, some might be quicker, some might be a little slower, but give yourself a little bit of time to really feel into the differences. Take note, write it down, take note, put sticky notes all over the place. Bathroom mirrors are one of my favorite. Just put them everywhere because we've known this a very long time. Studies are now, there's a couple studies coming out now or pretty recently showing further proving what we already know. And that is when you can tie an emotion to a habit, the likelihood you're going to continue on with that is very high. And we're seeing this more and more with movement specifically. The people who are the most consistent in their movement routines are the people who understand how movement is impacting their mental and emotional health, impacting their physical health. They feel so much better. They feel lighter. They feel clearer. Their body feels better. They sleep better. They feel more energized. They have better focus. Whatever it is, the more you can tie habits to emotions, the more likely you are going to be consistent with those, especially long term. As a general manager in the fitness space at different gyms, I will tell you, we would have older individuals, I'll say like 70 and up, that were there every day or consistently there like 2 or 3 times a week. And if you ask any of them, hey, why do you come all the time? What is the purpose of that? They're like, I just feel better. I feel better and my body feels better. I have lower inflammation. My mental and emotional health feels better. Yeah, for sure. It does all of those things. Any habit that I talked about today will help you feel better. Some are just one way, some might be in multitude of ways. Tie how you feel. Keep track of how you feel when you're implementing new habits. It makes a difference. And that is the real key to long-term success with a lot of these. The last piece of advice or recommendation that I'll give is don't do everything all at once. Set yourself up for success. Pick one thing. Pick an easy thing. You're like, I drink 20 ounces of water a day. I could definitely drink a second water bottle. Cool. Start there. Do that. Or I never eat breakfast. I think I can do a smoothie for breakfast and I'll just make it the night before. Awesome. Do that. Start there. Start with one thing. Start with something that's easy. One of the biggest issues, I don't want to say issues. One of the biggest struggles I see, especially among the women that we work with, which is we work mostly with women, is we don't trust ourselves. We've been taught, we've been told by society, from our parents, from significant others, from all kinds of people, not to trust ourselves. And sometimes that's not as obvious as you might think it is. If you have a really hard time maintaining habits long term, I can almost guarantee you have trust issues with yourself. Set yourself up for success. Building trust starts with one step at a time. And if you start with just one thing that you feel pretty confident, even if it feels really small and insignificant, start there. And then pick the next thing that feels decently easy, or you feel like might even make a big difference and you might feel a big difference. Start there. Do that. Start small. Just pick one thing. Success is layered over time. If you're a business owner, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not just one thing, it's systems built over time. And if we look at our health the same way, that's exactly what it is. For me, I didn't start with all of this all at once. I was raised in a moderately healthy, from a nutritional perspective, we'll say, from a moderately healthy nutritional perspective. And I had a lot of trauma. Lot of trauma. I definitely did not drink water growing up. I did work out pretty regularly, even from a very young age, for the wrong reasons. A lot of body shame, a lot of body image issues, different things like that, eating disorders, disordered eating patterns, all that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you, like, I slowly started making these shifts over time, and we see this with clients all the time, just makes a big difference. Like, give yourself a break. This doesn't have to be done in a month, in a few months, in a year. Like, take the next 5 years and change your life and commit to yourself, which is the only person you should have to commit to when you make these changes, that over the next 5 years, I'm really going to focus on me and my health and improving my health, because guess what? You're going to feel better. You're going to look better. Your brain's going to think better, think clearer. Hormones are going to be better. Like, relationships are going to be better. The relationship with your children, with a significant other, with family, with coworkers. It translates into all aspects of your life. And don't force yourself to do it all at once. Thank you for listening. As always, please like, subscribe, follow. If it resonates, 5-star reviews really, really, really mean the world to us. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.